May I request Honorable Shri Justice Dipankar Datta, Chief Justice, High Court of Bombay, Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayanan, Judge, Madras High Court and President, Tamil Nadu State Judicial Academy, Honorable Shri Justice Saipi Mukherjee, Judge, Calcutta High Court and Chairperson, West Bengal Judicial Academy, Honorable Shri Justice Sujoy Paul, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh and Co-Chairman, Madhya Pradesh State Judicial Academy, Honorable Shri Justice J.P. Gupta, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh, Professor Dr. V. Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, National Law Institute, University Bhopal, and Professor Dr. Balram K. Gupta, Director, Academics, Chandigarh Judicial Academy, to please take their seats on the dais.
सभ्यता के आरंभ से ही भारतवर्ष मानवीय मूल्यों का पोषक रहा है। इसी प्रवृत्ति ने भारत भूमि को न्याय भूमि का गौरव प्रदान किया है। भारत का संविधान समता और न्याय का विलक्षण दस्तावेज है। विधि का शासन जिसका मर्म है। न्यायालय इसी विधि के शासन के रक्षक है। समर्थ और सक्षम न्यायाधीश न्यायालयों की धुरी है। विधि का अद्यतन ज्ञान और न्यायिक विवेक न्याय कौशल के लिए सदा से अनिवार्य समझा गया है। जिला स्तरीय न्यायालयों में न्यायदान करने के लिए पीठ पर आसीन न्यायाधीश के ज्ञान और कौशल के उन्नयन का दायित्व देश की न्यायिक अकादमियां निर्वाह कर रही हैं। देश की जनता के प्रति उन्हें शीघ्र और सार्थक न्याय सुलभ कराने के संवैधानिक उत्तरदायित्व के प्रति कृत संकल्प होकर आज मध्य प्रदेश न्यायिक अकादमी के आह्वान पर भारतवर्ष की ये 24 राज्य न्यायिक अकादमियां पहली बार एक राज्य में एकत्र हुई हैं। अवसर है ऑल इंडिया स्टेट जुडिशियल अकेडमीज डायरेक्टर्स रिट्रीट का आयोजन का शुभारंभ भारत के माननीय राष्ट्रपति श्री रामनाथ कोविंद जी के कर कमलों से।
Thank you very much. This video was made and scheduled to be played in front of the Honorable President of India yesterday at Manas Bhavan, but due to time constraint it could not be. That's why we tried to display it right here in front of you. Namaskar and a very good morning to all of you. We would once again like to welcome you all to Jabalpur, also known as Sanskar Dhani, and of course the seat of judiciary in Madhya Pradesh. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to hear the luminaries who will speak on adult learning and pedagogy in judicial education, special reference to induction and orientation courses. This session will be chaired by Honorable Shri Justice Dipankar Datta, Chief Justice, High Court of Bombay, to be jointly co-chaired by Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayan, Judge, Madras High Court and President, Tamil Nadu State Judicial Academy, and Honorable Shri Justice I.P. Mukherjee, Judge, Calcutta High Court and Chairperson, West Bengal Judicial Academy. Other dignitaries on the dais also include Honorable Shri Justice Sujoy Paul, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh and Co-Chairman, MP State Judicial Academy, Honorable Shri Justice J.P. Gupta, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh, Professor Dr. V. Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, National Law Institute, University, Bhopal, and Professor Dr. Balram K. Gupta, Director, Academics, Chandigarh Judicial Academy. We would first of all like to formally welcome our guest with a book and a rosebud. I would like to request Shri Ram Kumar Chaube, Director, Madhya Pradesh State Judicial Academy, to welcome Honorable Shri Justice Dipankar Datta, Chief Justice, High Court of Bombay. Thank you so very much. May I request Srimati Cordelia Dekhar, Director, Meghalaya State Judicial Academy, to welcome Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayanan, Judge, Madras High Court, and President, Tamil Nadu State Judicial Academy. Welcome once again. May I request Shri J.C. Doshi, Director, Gujarat State Judicial Academy, to welcome Honorable Shri Justice I.P. Mukherjee, Judge, Calcutta High Court, and Chairperson, West Bengal Judicial Academy. Thank you and welcome. May I request Shri Rajiv Gupta, Director, Jammu and Kashmir State Judicial Academy, to welcome Honorable Shri Justice Sujoy Paul, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh and Co-Chairman, Madhya Pradesh State Judicial Academy. May I now request Srimati Aparna Aditsaria, Director, Judicial Academy, Assam and North-East Judicial Officers Training Institute, to welcome Honorable Shri Justice J.P. Gupta, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh. Thank you very much. May I request Shri Nitin Sharma, Director, Uttarakhand Judicial and Legal Academy, to welcome Professor Dr. V. Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, National Law Institute, University, Bhopal. Thank you so very much and welcome once again. May I request Srimati E. Tirumala Devi, Director, Telangana State Judicial Academy, to welcome Professor Dr. Balram K. Gupta, Director, Academics, Chandigarh Judicial Academy. I would like to take this opportunity to invite Honorable Shri Justice Sujoy Paul, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh and Co-Chairman MP State Judicial Academy, for introductory speech. Thank you so very much.
Dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries of the dais. Very good morning. Namaskar to all of you. In this session, which is basically related with adult education, I would like to begin my address with my introductory address with a small story. My favorite story is that Gautam Buddha was giving a month-old discourse in a place known as Jaitwan. Almost after 3 weeks, on a early morning, a student, a disciple came to him and asked him that I was in your last year's discourse also, I attended it for a period of 1 month. And this time also I have attended it for almost 3 weeks. What I realized that the other persons, my colleagues, those who are attending this discourse, they have achieved some goal in a spiritual path or in their life, but I am at the same place where I was. Connecting with it today's context, we can say that that disciple, that student, attended a refresher course and an orientation course, 2 courses, but his anxiety was that he is at the same place where he was before attending the course. The Gautam Buddha asked him that from your language it appears that you are not from this place, you came here from elsewhere. He said, you have rightly said, Tathagat, I am resident of Shravasti and presently residing here for last 20-25 years. The next question of Gautam Buddha was that when you, your family members, your friends visit Shravasti and they ask you what is the path, so do you tell them? Yes, I tell them with accuracy that you have to travel towards, besides Ganges, then on the left side the Himalaya ranges will come, then such and such river will come, and then Shravasti town will come. The next pointed question of Tathagat was whether on your telling them the path, whether they reach to Shravasti or their destination. The answer was, how this can happen unless they walk on that path. Gautam Buddha said that I only tell you, I only show you the path, writer's path. It is for you to walk on the path. So in Pali language, in those days, Pali language, Gautam Buddha said, Tume hi kicham atappam akha taro tathagata. Tathagata only shows you the path. It is for you to walk on the path. So this academy, our seniors, our traditions only show us the path. It is for us to walk on that path. So when we are talking about adult education, we have two sets of problems. If we examine it from the standpoint of a student, we have two sets of students, and all of us are students. One set of students, those who do not know the path, and academy and seniors, they tell us what is the writer's path, what is the correct path. Second set of students, that are those who know the path, but those who have hesitation to walk on that path, or those who are not walking on that path. जो जानते तो हैं पर मानते नहीं. So that is the challenge, the academy before us, that we should think the means and ways so that they not only know, they should also walk on the path. The academies can motivate them to walk on the path. So adult education has a different facet because it is very easy to mold a child because he is a blank slate. He is like a dough, you can mold it as per your desire. But the adults are like half-baked pots. Their mind is already conditioned by various ideas, ideologies. From the background they are coming, they carry the prejudices and biases. In such a manner, how to provide them a legal education which give them a scientific thinking, and that is the biggest challenge. I will just remind you what was the coronation oath of Vena, Raja Vena, in Shanti Parva in Mahabharata. I quote, "Take an oath that by your mind, deeds and words you shall protect the people, considering it as equivalent to the Creator, that you shall act in accordance with Dandaniti and not on your own caprice." End quote. So even those days, when our thinking is that Raja was Nirankush and Raja there was no other Ankush, so Raja was also required to act as per the dharma. So as per those dharma, the Raja was required to examine somebody's conduct, fact situation of something on the anvil of Dandaniti. And that is all in different contexts, in different scenario, in different era. The same thing is before us, that before all of us, there are a bundle of facts, a statutory provision or legal provision on the anvil of which we examine those fact situations and reach to a conclusion. So, to arrive at that conclusion, what is our scientific temperament? What is our capacity to see the things as they are? That is the thing, that is the challenge the academy has to develop. And this challenge was long ago addressed in India. And if you remember, in a recent celebrated book of Yuval Noah Harari, the Homo Sapiens and 21st Lessons for 21st Century, for both the books he has given the entire credit to the Indian meditation system. And he said that Indian meditation system and Indian philosophy has given me the capacity to see the things as they are. So that is, on those days it was called as Vipassana. So this is the biggest challenge because adult mind is already conditioned. So how to train the adult mind so that the adult mind adult mind eschews the biases and prejudices, otherwise it behaves like a mirror. The new ideas, everything reflects from it. And the challenge is that to turn these mirror into windows so that we can think dispassionately and in a scientific manner. Lastly, I'll just quote from Arthashastra. The Kautilya in his first chapter of Arthashastra has not talked about Arthashastra. In the first chapter, he said about Anvikshiki. And he said Anvikshiki is science of knowledge. You can learn the other chapters and understand the other chapters, provided you know what is the science of knowledge, how to gather the knowledge, how to implement it, how to develop it. So this is the biggest challenge, and we have a very learned panel with him. My responsibility was to introduce. This was my feeling and understanding that this is the biggest challenge for all of us to shape ourselves and shape our judges in that manner. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shri Justice Sujoy Paul. That was indeed a very insightful introduction to today's topic. Now let's begin with the panelist speakers. I would like to request Professor Dr. Balram K. Gupta, Director, Academics, Chandigarh Judicial Academy, to please share your insights on this topic with us.
The paterfamilias of Bombay High Court, Honorable Mr. Justice Dipankar Datta, co-chaired by Honorable Justice M. Satyanarayanan, Judge High Court of Madras, and co-chaired by Honorable Mr. Justice I.P. Mukherjee, Judge, Calcutta High Court, and the co-partnery of justices and directors of the judicial academies. I'm happy this morning on 3 counts. This session is being chaired by the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. Bombay High Court has produced some of the best of judges in the country. The second count is Chandigarh Judicial Academy is being guided and nurtured by Honorable Mr. Justice T.S. Dhinsa, the President of Board of Governors of the Academy. And the third count is I have a co-panelist in Professor Vijay Kumar. I've enjoyed not a very long association with him, but a meaningful association. I respect him immensely as such for his contribution that he has made. Till the end of 20th century, the Indian judges were shaped in the laboratory of courts at all levels. It is only after the advent of the 21st century that this task of shaping the judges has been taken over by the National Judicial Academy and the state judicial academies as such. When we talk about adult judicial education, certainly I would confess, even with my academic background, that judicial education is not an extension merely of legal education as such. And in that particular process, we have to nurture the young judicial minds. The andragogy which has to be followed in this particular context needs a specific context and background. To me, judicial education means senior judges share their experiences with the younger judges. Legends in Law by Videsh Sai is a must for all young judicial officers. It contains 42 life journeys of best of judges and lawyers. And it's an adult dose for judicial officers to really go through the journeys of these best of judges that this country has all through produced. Why do I share that the senior judges share their experiences with the younger judges? The actual demonstration of that we saw in the two sessions, the first two panel discussions which took place yesterday. Justice Bhatt, the kind of interaction, the manner in which he shared his own experiences, dealt with the different issues raised which concerned the young judicial officers. Same was the story of Justice Hemant Gupta. He spoke from his experience, dealt with different issues raised on the platform here. And the recipe that Justice Hemant Gupta suggested, if you wish to be a good judge, be a good human being. And that is the task of the judicial academies, which need to build up that particular aspect of the matter. When I refer to the Bombay High Court, I had at the back of mind Chief Justice M.C. Chakla. He was the Chief Justice from 1947 to 1958. He even very politely refused to go to the Supreme Court for that matter. And the marble statue, white marble statue, which is in front of court number 52 in the Bombay High Court. And the inscription is something which is motivating for the young judicial officers. A great judge, a great citizen, and above all, a great human being. That is what really is the task for the judicial academies to cultivate, to ensure that that is carried out. Harold Laski once wrote a letter to Justice Holmes, and he said, how much I wish if the people could realize that judges are human beings. And Justice Holmes wrote back to Laski, how much I wish if the judges could realize that they are human beings. This is the challenge of the judicial academies. This is the challenge of adult judicial education, for that matter. And in that context, as it was being said, judicial officers, no ego, no arrogance, only elegance. This is what needs to be nurtured in the young judicial minds. That is the task which is a challenge for that matter. You know, so many things need to be cultivated, and the judicial academies need to play a significant role in that particular context. I would particularly like to refer what is being done in the Chandigarh Judicial Academy. You know, the lecture method or the PowerPoint presentations is not the right situation for the judicial officers to be followed at all levels, for that matter. Simulation exercises, case files, decided case files. The judicial officers go through the files, framing the issues, appreciating the evidence, and then writing the judgment as such. And what was suggested by Honorable Justice Hemant Gupta yesterday, a judgment should run like a story, in simple language, short sentences. This is what needs to be cultivated amongst the judicial officers as such. From moots, we need to move in the judicial academies to mock trials. Mock trials are conducted in the Chandigarh Judicial Academy as a regular fixture. 2 faculty members on a particular proposition on issues which concern largely human trafficking, NDPS Act, in civil matters and other matters. A proposition is given. Different roles are assigned to the young trainee judicial officers. They play those different roles. One particular trial goes on for a period of 3 days. And at the end of it, each trainee judicial officer is required to write a judgment so that they actually get the exposure of what actually needs to be done in that particular context. This is the effort which is being made, and this actually needs to be extensively carried out. You know, a trial judge is on trial throughout the trial. That is what the message is actually conveyed to the judicial officers in that particular context. Yesterday, the Honorable President of India specifically pointed out that specific permanent platform of knowledge needs to be built up. What the Judicial Academy, Chandigarh, is doing. We started with the e-newsletter way back in May 2016. Regularly it is being brought out. It not only links the academy with the judicial fraternity across both the states, but also across the country and even beyond the country. Besides covering the latest cases, civil matters, criminal matters, constitutional matters, and everyone's some specific particular area which is a concern of the district judiciary are covered. And at the end of the year, the annual digest of cases is ready for this particular process. And besides that, the editor's editorial, the case comments, articles, so that the judicial officers are well equipped in that particular process. And to augment this effort, we have started with another aspect, and that aspect, study circles in each district in both the states. Every month, the district and session judge allocates a senior, say an additional district judge and a younger judicial officer. On a given issue, prepare a presentation. They do that. And then on a given date, the entire fraternity of the district, judicial fraternity of the district, discusses that. And after discussion, what needs to be incorporated, what needs to be excluded, is taken care in that particular context. And that presentation, final presentation, works as a bench book. It's a guide for the judicial officers to enhance the capacity to function in that particular context as such. Our judicial officers at different times are faced with challenging situations. From Nirbhaya to Sacha Sauda to Dishi Ravi, challenging situations. They need to be prepared for that kind of situation as well. You know, in that particular context, I'll briefly share the Sacha Sauda matter that I'm referring to is of August 2017 from Panchkula in the state of Haryana. Such a violent situation, so many killings, so much of property was destroyed. And the judge concerned, the CBI judge, dealing with the matter as such, it was such a big concern. And in that situation to come out, he played his role, and the confidence of the public in the judicial institution was really reinforced in that process. Similarly, if you go to the sensitization issue, so many issues arise which concern the society, and the judges need to be given the inputs. May it be POCSO, may it be domestic violence, juvenile justice. Issues are large, and workshops regular need to be conducted. It's not the lecture method at all. You know, the role of the judicial academies, from the classrooms to the courtroom. We have to convert the classrooms of the academies into courtrooms. That is what is the real challenge. Judicial academies, they need to tell them that as judges, how to manage the court, how to conduct the court. Your conduct inside the court, outside the court. Such variety of things. And judicial stress is one particular aspect which is a concern for which we need to do something as such. It is in that context that the judicial academies mentoring the young judicial trainee officers for the future. Some kind of a recipe needs to be prepared for that. And finally, the constitutional morality, constitutional values, and constitutional vision are basic part of the basic structure as such. Just ready. The judges need to keep company of the holy book, the Constitution. I'm conscious that I've overspilled. And my only alibi is, of course, Elizabeth Taylor, when she got married for the 7th time. She said, I shall be brief. Being the first panelist speaker, the field was virgin, the field was open. And therefore my alibi to have spilled over my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. Thank you so much. In our lives, time management is very important. Yeah, right. And within 1 hour, 15 minutes with 7 speakers, I think it will be prudent if we cut down the open discussion time for this session. Because it was to start at 10:40, we are already 10:34. So I believe all my speakers have come with some preparation. So if anyone feels to interact with any one of us, you are free to do after the session is over. Because I don't think we'll be able to conclude by 11:15. So we cut down on the open discussion time. No, sir. Absolutely. We'll adjust. We'll adjust and conclude it by 11:15.
Thank you so very much. And Professor Dr. Balram K. Gupta very well said that we learn from our own experiences and others' experiences. And life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Thank you so very much. And now moving forward, now I would like to welcome Professor Dr. V. Vijay Kumar, Vice Chancellor, National Law Institute, University, Bhopal, for his kind words.
The chairperson of this session, Mr. Justice Deepankar Datta, Honorable Chief Justice of the High Court of Bombay, Mr. Justice Satyanarayanan, Honorable Judge Madras High Court and the President of the Tamil Nadu Judicial Academy, Justice I.P. Mukherjee, Honorable Judge, Calcutta High Court as co-chairs, Mr. Justice Sujay Paul, Honorable Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh and co-chairperson of Madhya Pradesh State Judicial Academy, my fellow panelists, Mr. Justice J.P. Gupta, Honorable Judge of the High Court of Madhya Pradesh, Professor Dr. Balram Gupta, Director Academics, Chandigarh Judicial Academy, Honorable Chief Justices and Judges of various High Courts, the Director of Judicial Academies, my fellow Vice Chancellor, Professor Balraj Chauhan, invitees, and my dear students. Good morning to everyone present here. There are very few legal academics in this country whom I always revere and always listen to them carefully to learn something from them. Their presentation. Subject matter is one, the skill of presentation is another, the consistency, the content. And Professor Balram Gupta is one such teacher, an erudite scholar. And there are, let me tell you, very handful law teachers in this country who is on par with Professor Gupta. Having said that, I was cursing the Judicial Academy, Bhopal, for putting my name after him because it's very difficult to match up to his level when we make a presentation. I would be very brief, very specifically on the issue, on the topic. I have also delivered few lectures at the Judicial Academies of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, and also at the National Judicial Academy. From time to time. I am not an expert in this, but still sometimes I have been invited to share the academic view. And that is how the judges feel. It's an academic view, so don't take it seriously. Right? Sometimes I tell them, it is no doubt an academic view, but it is a constitutional view. And therefore, we have to adhere to the Constitution. So I'm not saying anything away from the Constitution. Coming to this topic on which I would like to take the next 5 minutes. Andragogy is an art and science of adult learning and refers to any form of adult learning. It is not necessarily adult teaching. It is both an art as well as a science of adult learning. So therefore, I would like to emphasize on the process of learning and refers to any form of adult learning. The main idea is that adults learn best when they fully participate in the training. And that is the first question we have to ask, whether in the trainings that we offer, there is participation, not from very few handful, because in every session, whether everyone will be in a position to participate. If a trainer is able to make every participant say something, participate in the deliberation, I think he or she would be the master trainer, because he gets involved and makes people also get involved in that process of learning and teaching. A judge is also a teacher. Not a teacher in the subject matter concern, because the judge can speak about the life experiences, which is very, very important for what we call it as such type of judicial training. And therefore, whether one is a judge, a trainer, a teacher, or a participant, they have to learn everything till death. Unlike other professions, I think legal profession is one, things keep changing, and therefore one need not forget to understand, to learn something from what is developing yesterday and today. Attending a training is different from participating in the training. So everyone participates, and that is why at the end of the annual report, when it is being published, we see what you call it as the quantitative data. How many trainings have been conducted, how many members participated, but we seldom see what you call it as the qualitative data coming out. And that qualitative data is one where we need to look at so that we could revise and continue to revise. It is not one-stop learning process for everyone. We have to learn from each and every session and move forward. And therefore, attending the training is different from participating in the training. Every participant is made to get involved and remain active during the entire training program. I would like to very briefly, many students of mine possibly sitting at the last row, noting down the proceedings, would be wondering what is this meaning of andragogy or andragogy in whatever way one pronounces. So I thought, for the benefit of them, I would like to identify some of the differences, though not every difference, but some of the differences between pedagogy and andragogy. In general, andragogy refers to the methods and approaches used in adult education, gaining experience and problem solving. Pedagogy is an education method in which learner is dependent on the teacher for guidance, evaluation, and acquisition of knowledge. That is pedagogy. I go to the class, I teach constitutional law, so I tell whatever I know about constitution, and the students learn whatever they can. It's one way. Right? Maybe sometimes they may ask a question, I don't understand this term, please let me explain. But andragogy is entirely different. There are 5 important differences between pedagogy and andragogy. The first one, and the foremost one, is learning behavior. In a classroom atmosphere, it is only one who is the giver. The rest of them receive it. How much they receive, we don't know. It's very difficult to assess. But in andragogy, the learners are 100% responsible for their own learning. Once again, there is a question whether they are learning anything or not. But they are 100% responsible because they have come with a purpose, unlike the students who come to the class. The second difference is the role of learner's experience. Adult learners can bring their experience, their own experiences, and continue to learn with their diverse experience. This is by and large absent in the pedagogy we employ in a classroom. So that is the place where when we make the judicial officers participate, share their experiences, there are 2 ways I look at it. If it is a good practice, I imbibe it. If it is a false practice, if it is a wrong practice, I try to avoid that practices when I go back and continue my work. Therefore, that type of involvement of the judicial officers is required, which cannot be mandated in a classroom atmosphere through pedagogy. The third one is the orientation of learning. While the adult learner, that is the judicial officers in context today, seek information that is useful in their personal life, the work environment, and in pedagogy, it is totally subject-centric. That is the third difference or distinction between pedagogy and andragogy. In the fourth place, which is also equally important, the willingness to learn. In andragogy, adult learners are driven by the process of learning to deal with the tasks on hand as judges or problems on hand with the desire or with the intention to improve themselves as judges. That is the intention. How can I, after attending this trainings program, whether I have added anything to my learning? Can I use them? Can I employ them? So there is an interest, and therefore every participant is expected to come with the willingness to learn. Right? But at the same time, we have to find out whether we are able to stand up to that expectation of that willingness to learn. Whereas in pedagogy, the learners are told what to learn and they are not driven by any other motive except how to get good grades or good marks. Right? That is the fourth one. And finally, the motivation for learning. In adults, they are motivated by self-esteem, self-confidence, desire for better quality of life, curiosity, self-development, and recognition. This is not an exhaustive list. So these are the features of adult learning. Whereas in pedagogy, the motivation is driven, as I mentioned to you, the last one, how to get good marks, and maybe if somebody is better motivated, how to get the first rank or the second rank. So there is the objective, the purpose, everything is entirely different. I would not get into the details of these things because there are 5 wonderful articles presented in the material that is given. I would not get into the details of each and every aspect of it. I would like to just share a few propositions. Adult learning is a complex phenomenon. We have to understand that. It is not that easy. In a classroom, it is very easy. I go, deliver, come back. But in adult learning, it is a complex phenomenon. The adults, independent of self-concept, ability to be a self-directed learner, readiness, and orientation to learning are interactive factors that help explain not only the great diversity among the adult learners, but also many of the commonalities. Now let me just quickly move on to an important aspect which I have witnessed. I may be wrong. I wish that I am wrong. In adult learning process, we have to keep one aspect in mind. The size of participants. For example, wherever I went, I have seen more than 120 to 150 participants in those training programs. In the academia generally, and particularly in higher education, if it is an undergraduate program, it can be 80 to 100. That is the maximum that one can have. When we move on to the postgraduate education, there is a number fixed by the University Grants Commission, not more than 20, because the teacher has to give individual attention to those learners at the postgraduate level. And therefore, I would like to raise this, not a question, but an issue. Are we right in having a large number of judicial officers in one training program? Whether it will be fruitful? Are we driven by quantity or should we think in terms of quality? I think if these things are looked at, the size of the participants is one aspect, and also increase the number of trainers and co-trainers. Let me just share with you, with the permission of the chair, 1 or 2 good examples. In the National Law School, Bangalore, I am a founding member of that law school from 1988. We have developed what is called as cooperative teaching. 3 teachers, and with Dr. Madhav Menon, at times we used to be 7 teachers in the classroom. And I had the privilege of teaching constitutional law with former Chief Justice, late Justice E.S. Venkatramaya, whose daughter is sitting here. It was such a wonderful learning for the teachers themselves. And the fag end of it, the students will, because I say something, the other person will say, I respectfully disagree with that opinion. He or she comes out with a second view, the third view, a moderate view, and all these things, at times after the class is over, the students will come and say, sir, we are thoroughly confused. And we say, yes, if you are thoroughly confused, our job is clear. Our job is good, because out of the confusion, you will try to find out a way what is right. and you will start reading, and that to that extent we are successful. So I would appreciate if the number is reduced of the judges, judicial officers coming in, the number of the trainers, the judges or court judges or whoever it is, possibly increase that number. It is possible for them to have one-to-one or one-to-two type of relationship in the process of learning and teaching. In each session, involve participants in diverse activities, reduce the gap between trainer and learner. This is very, very important. I have seen in many places, my due apologies to the honorable judges, when they go to the sessions to teach, there is an unwritten unease protocol, that I cannot ask question. If I ask the question, the judge will mistake me. Right? I think there is a fear, there is a sense of fear. Please correct me if I am wrong. This is what I heard. So therefore, we need to look at and reduce that gap so that we mingle, we become part and parcel of the team. Then I think whatever you give possibly will get into their mind, and possibly they may also improve their activities. Right? Promote questioning. This is what I mentioned. Promote questioning. Right? And as a teacher, I think Professor Balram Gupta also will appreciate, on many occasions our classes, we don't cover the syllabus. We uncover the syllabus. There is a world of difference between these two. We don't go by units and say that we covered everything. But every unit that we uncover, it is for better understanding of the student body. And therefore, we need to promote questioning by the students. Even if they give entirely different view, we have to appreciate that and allow them to participate. I think that is a challenge which the judicial training programs possibly need to take a lesson from. Therefore, the content and delivery for induction programs and orientation programs need to be carefully crafted and executed. It is not that somebody does something, assembles some material. No, it must be carefully crafted and even more meaningfully, carefully executed. Both induction and orientation programs need to be evaluated by the psychometrist. I am just bringing another phrase, psychometrist. Who are they? Psychometric assessment is a scientific method. It is a scientific method employed by organizers to analyze people's behavioral aspect in any training. And therefore, if any particular training is taking place, if we can press into service one of the psychometrists to analyze how the participants have behaved and how the trainer has reduced the gap, so on and so forth. And based on the report that they give, it is possible for us to add value to those training programs. Therefore, the purpose or objective is to get better results and realize two main qualities in judicial officers training. One is personality and the other one is ability. And that, to a great extent, the psychometrist certainly can help us out. Before I conclude, 2 or 3 points, 2 propositions. Andragogy generally overlaps into 4 important features. There is an interplay among these 4 important features or qualities. One is, it is a lifelong learning. The second one is the communication, both written and oral. We have today apps available for the judicial officers to improve their communication level. The third one is interpersonal relations, which I think yesterday also people mentioned about it. I will not get into the details of that. Whether it is with your own colleagues, the staff, the clients, the advocates and others who come to the premises of the courts. And finally, the decision-making process. I will not, because I am not an expert in speaking about decision-making, but these 4 aspects continue to interplay in the growth of every human being, every individual and every judge. Finally, disruptive technology is taking over. And in a classroom, I see many people using the mobile phones. And scientifically, they have studied this psychological behavior in the West, that if you are not able to keep away from the phone for 15 minutes, the friends don't call, they get into depression. This is what they consider. 15 minutes, I should get a message, I should get a call, otherwise my significance is lost. And therefore, to take away the impact of that, they have also come out with what you call it as gaming process. This is very, very interesting. I have employed that in my own teaching, and even the worst class, people used to say that this is the worst class, please don't enter. When I tried to employ this gaming process, let me tell you, I get 95% of the students' attention. What is it? It is a process, possibly I would make a mention about it. This is not a place for me to explain everything in detail. I liked one software which is very, very interesting, very user-friendly, and that is called as Kahoot.com. And I hope all the trainers, if they just log on and find out what is the benefit that it can give, let me tell you, it is just amazing. Kahoot.com. And that, when I use it, the participants, come alive. And they fight with each other, they laugh at each other, and they learn everything together. And I enjoyed that using that platform. And the result is immediately announced. It is not that one has to sit and evaluate their papers and so on and so forth. So this type of gaming can also be brought in to the better understanding and reduce the gap between the trainer and the trainee, and also focus more on quality than quantity. With these few words, is it possible for us to create an andragogy environment? Andragogy environment. What is it? It's a broad theme. All these features can be clubbed together. If that environment can be created, I think the judicial academies can do a wonderful job in the years to come. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. V. Vijay Kumar, for sharing your experiences, thoughts, and tools of education. May I now request Honorable Shri Justice J.P. Gupta, Judge, High Court of Madhya Pradesh, to express his views on today's topic.
Dignitaries on dais and off the dais. We heard two academicians and their view about the judicial education. My address would be basis on my personal experience as judicial educator, as I have worked in this academy for 5 years as a director. In this retreat of the Judicial Academy of the India, we have assembled to discuss and find out the shortcoming in our judicial education and to draw a plan, make it more effective so that objective of judicial education should be achieved. Nowadays, we are facing problem of mounting areas of cases, and it is commonly blamed that there is a usual delay in disposal of the cases, and it is shaking of the confidence of the people in judiciary. Confidence of the general public in the judiciary is the main property of the institution, which play a prominent role in the democratic setup of the governance. Therefore, there is a need that judicial education should be focused on the objective of speedy justice, qualitative justice, and quantitative justice. The objective of judicial education should be to facilitate the judges to acquire competence to achieve the aforesaid target. The mission of judicial education is to improve the quality of judicial performance by helping the judges to acquire tools for professional competence. It involves 3 distinct components: mastery of legal knowledge, development of professional skills, and acquisition of judicial disposition. In other words, the objective of judicial education is to assist judges to acquire knowledge, skill, and attitude required to perform their judicial responsibilities fairly, correctly, and efficiently, to promote judges' adherence to the highest standard of personal and professional conduct, to preserve integrity and impartiality of the judicial system through elimination of bias and prejudice, to promote effective court practice and procedure, to improve the administration of justice, to enhance public confidence and judicial system. The function of the Judicial Academy is to impart legal knowledge to the judges and develop their skill of judging and make them acquainted and inculcate the judicial values and ethics. Now the moot question is that what would be the method of imparting judicial education on the aforesaid subjects? Broadly, there are 4 ways of learning: learning by listening, learning by reading, learning by observing, learning by doing, by own experience. Our experience shows that imparting judicial education to the judges is a different exercise rather than from teaching the student in the class. After entering into profession, judges are supposed to obtain judicial education to get minimum standard of the legal education and acquainted with the skill or craft of judging and commitment of adherence with the judicial ethics and norms. Till then, they have their own idea and knowledge and commitment to values on the background of the past. The past experiences of that adult affect their current learning. It is the challenges of the adult education. Judicial education provides a unique forum outside of the adjudicative process for judges to enhance their knowledge, their skills, and their awareness of social condition. It also assists judges in developing an understanding of the judicial role and their own identity as a judge. In Judicial Academy, legal knowledge is being imparted by adopting method of listening and reading, by providing lectures and reading material, and conducting symposiums and conferences along with group discussions. And the method of observing and doing are mainly required for developing of skill of judging, and that can't be imparted by academicians. It is required to be imparted only by the judges or under the supervision of the judges. We also direct the judges to sit in the courtrooms with the senior judges at the time of induction training and acquire knowledge of the court working, and by providing exercise to write order sheet, frame charges and issues, understand the skill of recording the evidence, and after appreciation of evidence, prepare draft judgments. Now, apart from it, by way of moot court or by showing videos, training by observation is also being imparted. We also adopt methodology of doing exercise by giving all disposed of file to write his own judgment and order. Accordingly, we apply all 4 methods of learning. However, reception and retention of education in the adult remain less as compared to youngsters. Researchers have identified the cause of this phenomena. Firstly, self-concept. As we grow older, we shift from being dependent to being more independent, and adults have lots of experience from which they draw knowledge and differences. Adults want to learn, participate, skills and help him to solve problems and work better. In the aforesaid background, it is desirable that programs of the judicial education should be need basis of the judges. Now, there is no difference of opinion that judicial education should not be merely on lecture basis or as a passive learner. It should be two-way channel, means it should be interactive and participatory. Learning through observation and reflection is easily attained through structured observation, feedback, debriefings, structured discussions in a small or large group after each and every interactive activity. Learning by concrete experience could be attained by using role play, simulations or moot courts, experiential exercise, problem solving exercise and case studies. Learning by forming abstract concept might be attained through lectures or presentation, combined with the brainstorming, snowballing, questioning group work, debates, and other form of interactivity. In COVID-19 period, we have learned the effective use of information technology. We are imparting training to the judges through video conferencing. Now we can also concern the classroom. We also connect the classroom with the courtroom to pass the live proceeding under the guidance of judicial educators who will answer the queries of the participant so that judicial time and money can be saved. This matter was also pointed out by Honorable Sri Justice Prakash Srivastava, Chairman of this Academy, in his speech by giving example of Spanish Academy. The grey area of imparting legal education is related to inculcate judicial values and ethics. In this regard, mere lecture or providing copy of Bangalore Principle of Code of Conduct is not sufficient. There is a need of research and debate as to how judges can be motivated to adhere the judicial ethics and constitutional values. In the field of judicial education, there is also a need to address the problem of faculty development, as suitable faculties are not available to impart required judicial education by adopting all 4 tools of adult education. At present, the faculty is available only to deliver lectures and providing reading material. But these aspects fulfill only one part of the judicial education. Development of skill of judging and judicial disposition cannot be imparted by the aforesaid method. Therefore, faculties be developed and prepared with the collaboration of experts of adult education and judges involved in the imparting of judicial education who understand the principle of teaching and learning of adults, and it should be need basis of the judges which provides solution of the problem. There is another field which also require attention, which is impact assessment of the judicial education. At the end of the training session, there must be evaluation of the effect of training program. This will motivate the judges to take the training seriously. I also noted in one other aspect, there is also need to address the need of judges who came from the reservation class and have a no good legal education and capacity to learn rapidly and require more efforts to bring them in the mainstream of the judges. For upliftment of the judges and facilitating them to discharge their duty in a proper manner, there is a need to find out their shortcoming by deep research with a view to address them, to come out for them. I, from my experience of 38 years of the judicial service and more than 5 years experience as a director of MP, State Judicial Academy, can say that this can also be done by deputing some senior judges or retired judges in a district for 7 to 10 days to examine the work of every judicial officer of all cadres and find out the shortcoming, and if he is of the view that there are common mistakes committed by all the judges or most of the judges, then he can address them commonly and point out their mistakes and suggest the correct way of working. And when one of few judges are committing certain mistake, he can call them separately and point out their mistakes and provide solution, and also keep a record of these exercises. For impact assessment, he shall again visit the same district after fixed interval of the not less than 6 months and find out the impact of the earlier exercise. In earlier instruction, if earlier instructions and guidelines have been followed broadly, this will reflect that exercise are fruitful. And if you find that, and if the judge find that there is no much improvement in the working of the judges, he may report the same to the High Court, and the High Court may issue written advisory to the respective judges and also take into consideration at the time of their career upliftment. In this way, working of judicial officer can be improved and effect of judicial education can be assessed. On the basis of the research report of such judges, Academy can prepare further training program to improve the working of the judges in general, judicial education is a continuous exercise, and definitely it helps the judges to improve their working efficiency to achieve the goal of the judicial education. Earlier, I prepared such plan for spending money received under the recommendation of 13th Finance Commission. However, after the transfer, it could not be executed. With the apostate observation on the subject, I request all the participants to discuss apostate aspects and find out concrete solution by the consensus. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shri Justice J.P. Gupta, for your kind words on today's topic. With the Lordship's permission, we are omitting the section of open discussion. Now, to continue further, I would like to request Co-Chair Honorable Shri Justice M. Satyanarayanan, Judge Madras High Court and President Tamil Nadu State Judicial Academy, for his Lordship's remarks.
Good morning to all. Repetition always leads to unpleasantness, therefore I don't want to repeat what the esteemed earlier speaker said. My experience as a director of a member of a board of governors for 2 years and chairman of the Judicial Academy for a few months. As far as the role of the High Court judge is concerned, once you proceed over the session, better we walk off, because as long as we remain there, the participants either go to aeroplane mode, they don't talk anything. Therefore, better, after sharing the session, better we should go out, allow them to interact. My second suggestion is involve the services of the senior district judiciary officers, especially the retired officers, so that not only the adult legal education is more important, it's the court management is more important. Nowadays, we face a militant bar. Even in High Court also, we face a militant bar. So, let the officers of the district judiciary be trained on that also, how to face that. This is more psychological, more pressure oriented. And as far as young officers are concerned, my suggestion is, since they lack bar experience or little bit of bar experience, they tend to take a guidance from the interpreters or court officers or from the senior judges, and they don't give proper advice. Ultimately, they are going to land in disciplinary proceedings. It is not them. Therefore, we should also, the academy should also address on that aspect. With that few minutes, Honorable, I request Honorable Chairman to give some suggestion.
Yes, Honorable Shri Justice I.P. Mukherjee, Judge, Calcutta High Court and Chairperson, West Bengal Judicial Academy, for his Lordship's remarks. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall also try to be very brief as possible. My very humble understanding of androgogy is not more adult education, but it is more mature education. Mature education in the sense that we are educated, but we enhance our skill, enhance our experience. In my opinion, this Judicial Academy is the most eminent place for androgogy, in the sense that we have our education, we have our experience, but we enhance this experience and our education here. In my view, this Judicial Academy everywhere, whether it is Bhopal or in the state, is like a university or like a temple, but with a difference. In this university, we are both the professors and the taught. In this temple, we are the worshippers and the worshipped. I hope that I have been able to convey my views. And as judges, I will just give one or two examples and then end. Suppose we find that for some reason or the other, our judgments are falling short. We have received criticism that there is more narration of facts, discussion of submissions of learned counsel, but somehow the reasoning process has become subject to criticism. In this process of androgogy, we can take the help of eminent judges who were in the court before us. We can read reports of judgments of judges in the field where we are we are falling short to improve ourselves. Androgyny is a process of curing the defects, of getting rid of the defects. And in my opinion, this judicial academy can also be used as a place where we judges can more effectively learn case management, court management, and also ways to administer our courts better. This is, in my opinion, androgyny for us, the judges. Thank you very much. Have a very nice day. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shri Justice I.P. Mukherjee. And now I would like to take this opportunity to request Chair of Honorable Shri Justice Dipankar Datta, Chief Justice, High Court of Bombay, for his Lordship's concluding remarks and keynote address.
Good morning, one and all. Warm greetings on this sunny morning from my side. To begin on a lighter note, we as judges, when we hear batch petitions, there is a lead matter, we tell the counsel, yes, start arguing. The second one comes, we say, don't repeat, only add. And when we come to the seventh speaker, judges are almost impatient. So what I had prepared here has been mostly covered by all the previous speakers. I don't want to bore you by repeating the same thing. I knew this was coming. That is why I prepared a short handwritten note yesterday evening after the sumptuous dinner. I start from that. Is the director's retreat intended for the benefit of the judicial officers? To my mind, the answer is both yes and no. Viewed from a broader perspective, it is indeed for the judicial officers. But from a narrow perspective, it is for the directors. The idea is, we have all been invited here at Jabalpur to discuss and share our views on diverse contemporary topics, to educate, enrich, and equip the directors so that, taking home their experience from here, they can empower the judicial officers to evolve and emerge as knowledgeable, efficient, and virtuous judges. Capable of dealing with the diverse challenges that come in their way of adjudication of cases every day. We work in a sphere of activity where there is no end to learning. Even the greatest of lawyers can't claim that he knows all the laws. So it is rightly said, it's a continuous process. And perhaps this was in mind when the Bangalore Principles of Judicial Conduct were framed. I'll quote just one guideline from there. A judge shall take reasonable steps to maintain and enhance the judge's knowledge, skills, and personal qualities necessary for the proper performance of judicial duties, taking advantage for this purpose of the training and other facilities which should be made available under judicial control to judges. Professor Gupta was right in saying that judicial education is not an extension of legal education. Judicial academies should not train judicial officers on core legal subjects only. What is more important is how you shape the judicial officers to behave in court right from the stage he starts hearing a case till such time the verdict is delivered. The formula is very simple. If there are educators, they will educate. The judicial officers, they will learn, leading up to knowledge. The flame of knowledge must glow at all times till the last date of your retirement. Yesterday, we ended the session agreeing that to be a good judge, one must be a good human being. I would say this is one of the qualities. Some other basic qualities must be possessed if a judicial officer has to be a good judge. There has to be some amount of legal acumen in the judicial officer. There has to be intelligence in fair measure. He must have common sense, must not suffer from indecision, and as one of my preceding speakers said, in these unruly days where lawyers cease work at the drop of a hat, a judicial officer must conduct his proceedings with a bit of controlled aggression. By aggression, I don't mean that the judicial officer should be arrogant. You must all teach them that the judicial officer must know to hiss, not to bite. That is required. Otherwise, a judicial officer can't control his proceedings. During breakfast, Justice Sandeep Mehta was by my side. Justice Mehta's son is a student in Japan. Just look at the discipline there. He was telling me, Bhai Sahab, people don't talk loudly. When I call my son, if he is traveling in a metro, he will say, Papa, baad mein baat karte hai. Log sun lenge. This is the discipline in Japan. Not to speak of metro. Think of the situation in our courts. Please take pity on the judicial officers, the pitiable conditions under which they work. We go on giving sermons to them. We function from air-conditioned court halls. We have air-conditioned chambers. Just think about them. Go to the taluka courts and find out whether a lady judicial officer has a restroom to relieve herself. Without providing these infrastructure facilities, let us not blame the judicial officers. Their plight has also to be taken into account, and that should start from the Judicial Academy. Today's topic is with special reference to induction and refresher training. What is induction training? These are the judicial officers who form the base of the pyramid of the justice delivery system. You have to tell them, as directors, you have to train them. Keep two statements in mind. This is for the beginners. For a judge, honesty is not a virtue. Yes, I repeat, for a judge, honesty is not a virtue, but dishonesty is a vice. Today we find lawyers identifying judges. He's an honest judge. What is this? Have we come to such a pass that we have to be identified as an honest judge? A judge is supposed to be honest. How does he decide impartially if he's not honest? Therefore, this has to be inculcated in them right from the very beginning. Whether it be pedagogy, whether it be andragogy, we should not go by these theories. You have to tell them that dishonesty in the long run does not pay. The same thing applies to the orientation courses where the direct recruits come. They are mostly lawyers. They have never written judgments. As such, they are also freshers. They also need to be told when they join, they are 40, 45. maybe even beyond that. But I believe all the high courts have the power to terminate the service at 50 or 55. We will be ruthless in exercising this power if we find that people are dishonest. Second thing which you must inculcate in them, let your conscience be your only master. You need not think about what my guardian judge is thinking about me, what the administrative judges committee is thinking about me, what my appellate court or my revisional court thinks about me. Before you deliver verdict in a case, speak to your conscience. If you feel that yes, this is right, go that way. If you feel this is wrong, discard it. You must tell them that judges perform a divine function. You are being kept in place of God. In Bengal, we call them Dharmavatar, Dharma plus avatar. Justice Nagu yesterday pointed out about Dharma. This should be our Dharma, that we should be on the right path. We should decide between the two who is right and who is wrong, who is fair, who is unfair. Your justice, the justice you render must be just. This is what we expect from judicial officers, and it is for you directors to train them up in that fashion. You should also tell them that, look here, no judge has been born who has never made a mistake. Perhaps there is no judge whose decision has not been reversed, either in appeal or revision. Our system is this, that sometimes the better wisdom of the lower court has to yield to the higher wisdom of the higher court. You will have to accept that. But it could well be so that you are right and the appellate or the revisional court is wrong. Once you finish delivering the verdict, detach yourself from the case. It may so happen that your appellate court has reversed your judgment, but the Supreme Court may restore your judgment. There are instances galore. But do not be bogged down by what has happened in the further tiers before the upper courts. Switch off. Go on to the next case. This is how you should, tell the judicial officers who are entering the judiciary how they should behave, how they should conduct themselves. As a guardian judge, whenever I have gone to the districts without any notice, what we find is that at 10:30 the judges are not on the dais. When you call for an explanation, the explanation is the lawyers don't turn up before 11 o'clock, so therefore we are working in our chambers. Well, they may be right, they may not be right. But if you can work in your chambers dictating judgments, why don't you do so on the dais, starting from 10:30? As and when the lawyers start entering your court, you switch to the board, start calling the matters. But at least there should be a projection before the public that here is a judicial officer who is absolutely punctual, who comes to court timely, takes the dais timely, and delivers justice. There is another aspect of regularity. All the judicial officers are entitled to leave. When you see their ACRs, you find almost invariably 13 casual leaves are taken. If it is a necessity, I don't mind. Judges won't mind. But please try to tell them that this is not employment. As Justice Srivastav said yesterday, in All India Judicial Services Association, Supreme Court has said this is sovereign judicial function This is a call for national duty. Just as the army serves at the borders, you are here doing national duty. If you don't want to do this duty, don't come to this. Don't join the judiciary. Seek greener pastures elsewhere. But if you are in the judiciary, cut down on it. You have to be absolutely committed to the judiciary. And I would suggest, Mr. Chobe, you are there. I'm sure each of the judges have their own stories of being committed to their own work, not committed to anything else. Please ask each of the judges 3 or 4 instances, compile it, give it to all the directors. Let them know what we do as judges. Right? Next, you will find judicial officers coming with a baggage. I know all. I need not learn anything. Well, these are a batch of judicial officers who might be really educated, erudite people, but they have within them a sense of superiority complex. These people have to be toned down. You have to treat them separately. It may so happen they may be more knowledgeable than you, they may be more knowledgeable than me on the academic front. But is it the case that all those who were very good in academics have become good judges? No. So you have to handle them with compassion, with sensitivity. You have to tell them that, look here, I'm your elder. Whatever I am saying to you, I feel it's correct, but it may not be acceptable to you. But what I am sharing with you is the mistakes that I have committed in the past. And therefore, I am warning you beforehand that if this situation happens, please don't go this way. This is not the right way. You have to take the correct way. This is how you approach the problem and solve it. This is something which is not intrinsically connected with the work you perform on the dais. I'm coming to what you should tell them while they perform on the dais. Let me take the case of passing status quo orders. What is status quo? You want the status of the property or the thing to be preserved till such time the matter is finally heard. When an injunction petition comes before you, say it's a property dispute, plaintiff says, I'm in possession of the property, defendant says, I'm in possession of the property, and the judicial officers find it difficult, status quo. You have to tell the judicial officers the consequences of such status quo orders which do not, with any degree of clarity, specify the status to be preserved. It generates litigation. You will see Order 39-2A coming, Section 151, police help. Now 226 petitions. I have got this injunction order, I have approached the police, police is not extending help, please issue a mandamus on the police. 3 types of cases are generated from one indefinite, vague status quo order. Well, you are to decide on the basis of, on applying the test of preponderance of probability. You have affidavit evidence before you. It's a question of a moment. Whichever way you feel, you give the order, but with one rider. Give certain reasons for it. Why? Because these reasons will be the shield for the judicial officer when the matter goes higher up. That this is the reason which prompted me to either grant an injunction in favor of the plaintiff or to refuse the injunction. I don't say for a moment that status quo orders should not be passed, but specify the status that you intend to preserve. On the criminal side, we find jail is the rule, bail is the exception, but it's the other way around. But why is this happening? Has anybody questioned? The same judicial officer, when he is elevated as a judge of the High Court, he takes a volte-face, absolute turnaround. Why should this be? Article 21 is the most fundamental of all fundamental rights. Even if you feel that you may be taken amiss by your guardian judge or the administrative judges, once again I say, if you feel that this is a case where the liberty should be protected, grant the bail, support your order with reasons. This is what we expect from our judicial officers. One last thing which I would like to apprise the directors. For the new entrants who are the novices, if not the whole of the Constitution, please at least educate them on the preamble, part 3, part 4 and part 4A. Even if not part 3, 4, 4A, at least the preamble. What we have promised to ourselves. We have promised social justice. Now, it may so happen that in a particular case, these scales are very evenly balanced before the judge, and the judge finds it very difficult to take a position. The way I look at it, I'm sharing with you. Please tell them to look at the preamble. What is this social justice concept? Other things being equal, justice for the weaker and the poorer section. Your balance should be in favor of the poorer or the weaker section. Please tell them this so that they can take the right path. Since one of my preceding speakers said attending is not only enough, participation is the requirement, I fully agree. We have law students behind. May I, Justice Oak, you are the senior most judge here, may I take 2 minutes time and interact with them? For you, I am looking for a 6-letter English word which has been very important to you right from your birth and will be there till the end of your life. A 6-letter word starting with S. And that 6-letter word, if you take out that S, constitutes another word which is very important for the country, how the country is governed. Can you tell me what is the word I am looking for? 6-letter, one word. 6-letter, one word. Very well, time is short. This is for you. The word is select. When you were born, your parents selected a name. When you grew up, parents selected a school, a teacher, college. Now you are selecting after you are 18, which is the profession you will take up. And this select word contains a 5-letter word, which is most important for the governance of the country, elect. My advice to you is, please be very cautious in selecting. And this is also equally applicable for the directors. Since you are directors of judicial academies, you have to select the model topic for discussion so that it reaches to the bottom of the heart of the judicial officers so that they can perform. Please be cautious in selecting. I feel I have also overstepped my time limit. I thank the Maharashtra Judicial Academy and also Chief Justice Rafiq for bestowing this honor on me. All of you, please take care, stay safe, stay blessed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shri Justice Dipankar, that indeed it's a continuous process. And may I now request Jayant Sharma, Faculty, Madhya Pradesh State Judicial Academy, for vote of thanks.
All the dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks, and I extend my sincere thanks to all the honorable judges and panel speakers who have accepted our invitation and given their valuable time. Thank you all. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you very much, all the dignitaries on dais, for making this session a very successful and fruitful one. We are taking a break for tea, and we shall come back to begin the fourth session at 12. So there's almost 19-20 minutes break, and then we'll assemble back. Thank you so very much for joining us. So there is a 15-minute delay, but we'll try to cover it up. Thank you so very much.